one question here, and this is for Professor Lesson. So the question is that in the summary, you mentioned that Ramadan is associated with increased insulin resistance. The participant would like to ask if you could have more explanation on this, please, Dr. Nasir.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, yes, I thought that might be come up. So the issue of insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance has actually been looked at not just by one study, but a few studies. And most of those studies are fairly consistent that in Ramadan, your insulin resistance actually increases. The question is, why should that be? Because if you're thinking that you lose weight during Ramadan, and if you also bear in mind that what Professor Hamdi has also said quite rightly, that your visceral fat changes, and some studies, including one by Dr. Moez Al-Islam, have shown that visceral fat actually gets reduced during Ramadan. Then the question is, why is that? What I can say is that that's what the studies show. And also studies show that change in insulin resistance is different between morning and evening. So your morning HOMA-IR versus your evening HOMA-IR are different. So there is more resistance to insulin just around the time that you're having iftar in the evening. And I think that does need an explanation. I think, perhaps some more studies that can look at it in more detail. One of the other interesting things that you see, and that is the study that we did using continuous glucose monitoring some years ago, and we replicated that several times in glucose monitoring studies that have been done by other groups, including Dr. Walid Kaplan and Dr. Bashar Fandi's groups, is that when iftar happens, almost universally, in response to iftar, your glucose level in people who have diabetes, certainly, it rises really quite fast. It's quite a steep rise in blood glucose. And is that just because people are having high rich carbohydrate meal? I've always maintained that I don't think that is the case. I think something else is going on. And I think one of the explanations of that is the insulin resistance. And the question is, why that insulin resistance? And I showed some slides showing changes in gut hormones. And I think that's something that we need to look at specifically in the context of Ramadan, because what people have done, they've looked at it in different forms of intermittent fasting, and I showed you one of those studies, but in the context of Ramadan, that has not been done kind of comprehensively. Yes, some good research groups from Saudi Arabia and I think from Qatar as well, and others have looked at isolated hormone levels, mostly in the morning, but occasionally even better morning and evening, iftar time and morning. And they have shown some of those changes in your gut hormones. Now, specifically, what those are, I can't really go into. But something that I would like to do is to do continuous monitoring of not just glucose, but continuous monitoring of hormones during Ramadan type fasting. And that is possible. It's something I've actually put together a proposal which is waiting for funding. If Dar wants to fund us, then we can take that forward. I think that's something that needs to be done. It needs to be done properly. So I'm throwing that at Dar. If there's funding to do that, there's a protocol waiting to be done, and I'm more than happy to share that and get other people involved doing that particular study properly. The technology is there; it can be done.
Yeah, so it looks like we need to do more research in there. And there was a comment that Professor Sama said the opposite, that insulin resistance improved with fasting. So
actually, no, he's right. Some studies have shown that, but more recent studies and the studies of, I think, better quality have actually consistently shown insulin resistance. It's not universal. It's not a universal finding, but it's certainly something that is the predominant finding in most of the studies now. I know some Ramadan enthusiasts in the audience, they would like that not to be the case, and they would disagree with me. And I think we can just sit down and just discuss that for a long time. But I think that's my take.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we are already over time, but just some quick comments, maybe final words from Dr. Nisa, and also perhaps yourself again, Dr. Nadiran. What do you think then moving forward, we should, with all the benefits of Ramadan, how do we translate that into longer term benefits, maybe post-Ramadan. Dr. Nisa?
As I mentioned, Prof, in our study, if the patient can actually extend what do they learn, yeah, because some of them are also do consistent fasting Monday and Thursday, and they extend their fasting during Shawwal time as well. But the motivation to enforce is quite challenging. So you can see they're quite motivated, but after a month of Ramadan, then the motivation drop down. So this is things that I think multidisciplinary team should come in and identify how we can promote sustainable improvement in patients with diabetes.
Right, Dr. Nadir?
I think, I echo what you have said yourself, that I think we need more studies, more physiological studies into what actually happens during Ramadan fasting. The studies that have been done so far, I think they are very encouraging, and the number of studies over the last few years really has gone up quite exponentially, and that is encouraging. And the quality of studies is also increasing. We know much more about Ramadan than we used to, but I think this forum, Dar, creates a place where ideas are shared, and we can come together and look at what needs to be done and try and do them properly. Dr. Hassanein has just put an answer on the chat box saying that Dar cannot provide funding, but we are a group of volunteers. I agree with that, Dr. Hassanein, of course, but I think each of us individually, we might have resources, or we might have ideas that might help the others, and that is quite important. So yeah. For me, going forward, I think we need more studies. All the studies that have been done, most of them are encouraging. Yeah. I think Ramadan is a good thing. Ramadan fasting is a good thing, and I think we're finding more about that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think on that note, Dr. Suzaini and I thank you very much for this attending this session. And I suppose we should now move on to the next session. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to three of our eminent speakers.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.